Um, as everybody I think knows, this is Women's History Month, and we thought it would be really tremendous to celebrate Women's History Month with the help of the women in Doan's history. And so yesterday, as we were just discussing on this call, Emily Kirchie, who graduated in the class of 2013, uh, read to our lower school students May Among the Stars, a book about Dr. Mae Jemison, the first African American woman in space. And Emily also shared sort of her job as an engineer with NASA working on the International Space Station. Today, our middle school students are going to hear from Miss Allie Woodard. She is in the class of 2012 from Doane Academy. Allie was actually the founding president, if she can even believe this, of our then engineering club, and one of my first advisees, which she also forgot. Uh, but Allie
Sorry.
left Doane Academy with a plan to go into marine biology and got a little diverted along the way. She graduated from the University of Tampa in 3 years, in part because of her taking advantage of the college credit option she had while here at Doane. And she has since moved into television, and she's here to tell us all about her job in TV and the women of film and media history who inspire her. So, Allie, take it away.
Yeah, well, you pretty much took away my whole first slide, so that's me. Um, Thank you. Nice to meet you guys virtually. I know COVID has slowed everything down, but still kind of want to talk to you guys about some really cool women in film and also just what I do at my current job. So, I currently work um, as a post-production coordinator for Nickelodeon Animation. Sorry, let me go so that I can see this. The shows that I currently work on are the entire SpongeBob universe, which is SpongeBob SquarePants. Everyone knows that one. Camp Coral, which was released about 2 to 3 weeks ago on Paramount Plus, and then the Patrick Star Show, which was just announced. I also work on the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and I did some work on the Loud House movie. And those two films will be coming to Netflix in about a year. Um, this is by far the coolest job that I've ever done. Beforehand, I used to work at HSN, and then I used to work for The Ellen Show in her promos. Um, but animation is super cool to me because it's such a freeing art form. And literally, if there's an issue with animation, you just send it back to the drawing board. And that's kind of what I love about it is the fact that animation has no boundaries. And, animated shows nowadays, they really go from storyboard to animatic to the computer, where everyone does the animation. It's usually on the computer. But a cool thing about SpongeBob is the fact that it's been going on for so long, since 1999. They didn't mess with the formula. So we still use a lot of old school animation techniques on that show. A lot of it is still hand drawn. I actually think the entire show actually might still be hand drawn. And we also use another step, which is called X sheets. And that's pretty much where you write out all of the animation before animating it on the computer. So one episode of SpongeBob takes about 200 to 300 pages of X sheets, and someone has to physically write down all of that animation. So that's pretty cool. And another cool thing about working in animation is that animation comes from all over the world. So for SpongeBob and eventually the Patrick Star Show, we actually get our animation done there in South Korea. And for Camp Coral, our animation is done in India. For the Loud House movie, the animation is done in the Philippines. And for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that animation is done in Australia. So it's kind of cool to see where all of it comes from because you would think it's all done at Nickelodeon, but the storyboard is, but not the final animation. So my favorite part about my job is kind of seeing that entire process because the storyboard to the final animation stage is definitely you wouldn't even believe it. So I kind of wanted to show you guys a visual of that. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and show you guys this video.
The People Puzzle Challenge, brought to you by Funko Snapsies.
Right, let's go, let's go.
Teeth before.
Oh my gosh, two after.
Presenting whatever this is. I wish I had that kind of sibling around my house. Watch it together on Nick YouTube. Wait, I kind of do.
Okay, now, how many of you have played musical instruments before?
Do instruments of torture count?
No.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either. That's fine. No one has any experience. Fortunately, I have enough talent for all of you. All of you.
When do we get the free food?
Okay, try to repeat after.
Sorry about the ad pop up there, guys. That's the first time that's happened. But anyway, going from the storyboard to the final animation, it almost seems like magic. You know, how do we go from these awesome drawings to the vibrant colors that you guys see on your screens? Like, that's where my job starts. So I'm in charge of moving all of those final materials around in different departments. And the way I keep track of that is through a post-production timeline, which pre-production and production happens, and I get the final animatic and audio and the first round of final animation. I give all of that to my editor. And then afterwards, we lock the picture, which is where we figure out the timing of an episode and lock it down. Everyone's happy with it. The comedic timing's great. The scenes aren't too long. Everything's flowing nicely. And once we lock that picture and call any animation issues, I then send that file to our entire sound team, which is sound design, music editor, and dialogue editor, so that they can start working on the sounds that you guys hear in the show, like Squidward slapping his knee, on just the general dialogue. After that, we start to receive all of the final animation. So any animation errors that we found, we get all of those back. At this point, the sound design team is pretty much done doing all of their work, choosing sound effects, choosing sound bites that sound good. And then we take the final animation, we put it through color correction, and we take the final sound and we mix it. That way it's legal for broadcast, because when you're seeing something on a computer, it's going to look completely different on the TV. So we have to, go through certain steps to make sure that everything actually looks good. And once we get all of those files, we literally put the show together. We take the color corrected files and the final mix, and we just mash them together and export the show for you guys. And then after that, we put it through QC, and that means quality control. And so the QC part is where someone goes through the entire episode down to the frame, because when we're watching the animation, we're watching it in real time. So there are things that we could be missing. And so that's where the QC process comes in, to make sure if there's any flash frames or any animation jumps, they find that, and then we fix it again and put the show back together. After that, I then prepare all the paperwork. So we get all the final credits, the title cards, anything that has to do with the show, any specs or anything. And then we deliver the show to broadcast for all of you guys to enjoy. And so that entire process takes about 3 months. But before that, there's 4 months of work that I have nothing to do with. That's the pre-production and the production stage. So one episode of SpongeBob takes about 6 to 7 months to complete. So that's just a little bit about my job. But I wanted to talk to you guys about some women in film, because, the film industry is definitely considered a male-dominated area, and post-production and animation separately, even more so. In the animation industry, there's only about 20% of women up against 80% of men. And when it comes to editing, in the top 250 grossing films, only 23% of those editors were women. So women definitely are not represented as much. Sorry about that, Nemo. Are not represented as much in editing and in animation and in film in general. Of course, those numbers, they're not very inspiring. They're kind of disappointing, but currently there are huge strides being taken to diversify the film industry, which is really important. And even though these tactics started being implemented in the last 3 to 5 years, we can't ignore the few but amazing women that have literally broken down barriers in the film industry. I wouldn't be at Nickelodeon Animation without women like Alice Guy Blaché, who was the first female director. Whoopi Goldberg was the first Black woman to win to get the EGOT award, which is, she won a Primetime Emmy, a Grammy Award, an Oscar, and a Tony Award. And then Thelma Shoemaker is Martin Scorsese's editor. And y'all aren't old enough to watch Martin Scorsese's movies, but when you are, just know that a woman has been editing these movies for over 50 years. I also just wanted to highlight 4 women in the industry that have fought and continue to fight to make changes in the film industry. They've also inspired me on my career journey. So we're going to talk about Miss Eartha Kitt first. I love her. She was an actress, a voice actress. She did singing, songwriting. She was also a Broadway actress, and she's a huge inspiration and activist for gay rights, Black women, and women everywhere. And that inspires me because she was just very authentic in life. She always said what she wanted and was always able to voice her opinion. And that's important because, women aren't really allowed to voice their opinions sometimes. And something that was tolerated in the past a lot, and it still kind of happens nowadays, is that if a woman voices her opinion and people don't really agree with it, they can very well lose everything that they had. And that happened to Eartha Kitt. Her career took a massive hit because she voiced an opinion about the Vietnam War that the majority of Americans didn't agree with. And the inspiring thing about her is that even though her career was kind of going under at the moment, she didn't give up. She went back to France and just worked on some stage plays and had a really huge following there. And then she came back to America and had a huge renaissance with her career in my generation because she voiced one of the most iconic villains, one of my favorite villains, Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. And on a show that Nickelodeon did, My Life as a Teenage Robot, she also voiced Fexus. And so women like Eartha Kitt are pivotal in the film industry because they don't just give up after having a setback. They take advantage of other opportunities and then they come back stronger than ever. And so that's super important. And that's always been really important to me to see women like that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Miss Tara Strong, and she's a voice actress, and she's one of the most amazing voice actresses out there. She's voiced some of the most iconic cartoon characters, male and female. She's made just as many male characters famous as female characters. She's been Raven in Teen Titans, Timmy Turner in The Fairly Odd Parents, Dill Pickles from Rugrats, Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls. She was Ben Tennyson in Ben 10 and Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, Batgirl, Spider-Woman. Tara Strong has voiced over 500 characters. It's absolutely insane. And she inspires me solely because every character that she brings to life normally sounds different. And I wanted to give you guys an example of that. So here's an example of her playing multiple characters in just one show. The show is Danny Phantom. I'm going to mute myself real quick.
In other news, police got a break in the recent rash of mysterious burglaries as security cam footage revealed the ghostly culprits. No, all I know is that his family's a bunch of ghost-hunting freaks. Oh, I'm sorry. By freak, I mean... Nah, I mean it. See you, Val. See it, freak. Have some warm Christmas goose. That is really uncool. Come sundown tomorrow.
So all of those voices, they sounded slightly pretty different, but that was all Tara. And I never really know when I'm hearing Tara Strong's voice, but I'm never surprised to find out when she's involved in a show because she's rooted herself so deeply in the voiceover world that people just love her because of her sheer talent. And that's just really inspiring to me to know that she's so great at her job that she is she's like a hot commodity. Everyone wants her on everything. And a fun fact that I learned while making this presentation is that she actually voiced Baby Bo in my favorite movie of all time, Spirited Away. She voiced him in the American dub version, and I didn't even know that. And I've seen that movie over 50 times and never knew it was Tara Strong talking. So again, you might not know her voice or her face, but you might not know her name or her face, but you definitely know her voice. Now I want to talk about Miss Meryl Streep, and this is my favorite actress of all time, and I love her for so many reasons. She's the spokeswoman for the National Women's History Museum. She's one of the most versatile and celebrated actresses of our lifetime. She's very widely considered the best actress of her generation, which I would agree. And she's kind of what we would call a chameleon in the film world because she can really transform into any character without much effort. Um, she's a huge feminist and is always looking for ways to uplift female voices. She did something really cool, which is funding the Writers Lab, and that's a program for screenwriters, female screenwriters over 40. And that's really important because women aren't represented as writers either, especially not women over 40. In the top 250 grossing films, women only comprised of 19% of the writers in all of those films, and that's very abysmal. And she made the Writers Lab because the world viewed women over 40 as basically obsolete. She wanted to end the stigma and show the industry that just because you're a certain age doesn't mean you have to give everything up and raise kids. Like, you can change your career, you can keep moving forward in the career that you already have. You can, basically, the world is your oyster. It doesn't matter how old you are. And I take inspiration from Meryl's strength and perseverance because she's been acting since the 60s, but her career didn't take off until like the 80s. And even now she starts bringing iconic roles to life, like Aunt Josephine in A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Witch in Into the Woods, Felicity Fox in The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and then my favorite character of all time, pictured here, which is Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada. And I take huge inspiration from Miranda Priestley specifically because, women are very underrepresented in films just in general. And in The Devil Wears Prada, we have Meryl Streep, who showed me a woman in power and how she handles that power. And women are rarely given respect when they walk into a room. And when Miranda walks onto the screen, everyone stops everything to make sure that her needs are being met and that the company is being run to her liking. And so it was really inspiring to see a woman in charge. And it showed me in general that a woman could be in charge. And one thing that I took away from this character is her attention to detail in her career, because Miranda knew her company so well that nothing could get past her. And throughout the movie, people were trying to undermine her authority, and she knew it was happening and was able to, take control back without compromising herself. And so I definitely took inspiration from that strength. And a fun fact about Meryl Streep is that there's an active running joke in the film industry about the amount of Oscar awards that she's nominated for. She's nominated for an Oscar almost every single year because she's in everything and she's great. And that's why she holds the Guinness World Record of the most Oscar nominations for an actress. If she's not nominated, people are like, well, did she do anything? Was she just not in a film? It's pretty much expected at this point. So definitely had to highlight her because she's one of my favorites. And we're going to leave this off with Miss Ava Duvernay. And I would hope that a lot of you guys have heard of her because she's a huge trailblazer in the film world. She's what we would call just a filmmaker. And that's like a blanket term for a writer, director, and producer. Someone who basically has their hands in the film from pre-production, production to post-production. And she just oversees all of it. She's a huge activist and a feminist, and she doesn't hide the fact that she's pro-Black and an advocate for uplifting Black voices, which is important to me as a Black woman. And she's one of few Black female directors. And there are a few female directors in general. The directors for the top 250 grossing films was only 13% of them were female, and none of them were Black. So Ava's super important because she just really started this career in the film world. She picked up her first camera when she was 32. And so in this short amount of time, she has completely broken down so many barriers, won so many awards. And she's an inspiration for people everywhere that think that they're too old to change their career. She used to be a journalist and didn't thrill her. So she started looking into the film world. And even though she's not the first Black female director, she's definitely gained the most attention. And she uses her platform to educate people on Black issues. And even if it's in a fictional way, it is still based off of a true story. But she also does a ton of documentaries. And she also does some fun movies for people y'all's age, which is one of them being A Wrinkle in Time, which gained her the title of the first Black woman to direct a film with a budget of over $100 million. And to put that into perspective, a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie costs about twice that, and sometimes $300 million. those budgets are insane. And so I love Miss Ava DuVernay because I honestly, without her inspiration and her career path and her journey, a lot of Black people would probably be even more underrepresented. She's definitely paved a lot of the way for a lot of us in the film industry. And that's all I got for you today in terms of people. So do you want me to stop presenting, Russell, or are you good? I wanted to go ahead and just do a call to action.
I wanted you to go ahead and do that call to action, and then we'll see if we got a little bit of time for questions.
Okay. Yeah. So I really do hope that I inspired you guys in some way because, like, y'all are so young and you might not realize it, but you're planting seeds for the rest of your life right now. You know, when I was at Doan, I was not the most excited student. I was in a lot of math and science courses, and you know, that's totally fine. If you want to go into math and science, more power to you. Could never be me. But at the same time, it's important to know that if you like art, then there are careers there too. You know, I found a way to always merge art in my math and science courses. I'm pretty sure I wrote my pre-calc paper on the math behind sound waves. And so, like, if you're feeling that spark when you watch TV or a movie or a show and you're listening to music or writing or reading an article, then it doesn't hurt to, you know, look into that a little bit more. You may still be young, but things that you love now can easily lead to your future. And just to speak to the women in the room for a moment, in your life, there are going to be plenty of people discouraging you solely because of your gender. And that's really unfortunate. And we're working really hard to change that. And it could very well be happening to you now at this really young age, but it's cliche to say this, but don't let that negativity suffocate your fire. Like, let it fuel it. If you want to get into film or into law or into the medical field, but you're afraid that it's a man's world and that women aren't welcome there, please know that every world is considered a man's world, including fashion and makeup and cooking. Like, it's all male dominated. So if you let that stop you, that's going to be an issue. You know, you have to keep moving forward and keep persevering. And no matter how extreme or out of reach your dreams may sound, like, please go after them. And just in general, to everyone, the dreams that you're chasing, it's not going to be easy, and it shouldn't be easy. You know, nothing that you love should be an easy situation. My job is not easy in the slightest. You would think that it is because I work on SpongeBob. It's the hardest job I've had by far. So it's just important to work hard, know your worth, keep moving forward, and you'll eventually get to where you want to be. And I wanted to leave you guys off with a kiddicism, which is what Eartha Kitt called her quotes, sorry. When life becomes confused, step aside and think. You know, don't get bogged down by negativity. If you're overwhelmed, it's cool. Take a break. I've taken plenty of breaks in my life. I didn't just start out at Nickelodeon Animation. So just sit back, clear your brain, and keep moving forward.
Thank you so much, Allie. You can go ahead and unshare so we can maybe see a few more faces on the screen here. We've got a couple of minutes left, and so we absolutely entertain the idea of some questions. I have to put one caveat out there that Allie has asked me to point out. Allie cannot talk about any show she's currently working on that has not come out yet.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind.
Yes.
You have a question in the chat there from Alana. Can you work from home?
Oh yeah, I'm working from New Jersey right now, and Nickelodeon's in Los Angeles. I'm eventually going to have to go back to Los Angeles when COVID decides to go away, but yeah, I can totally work from home.
Miss Barada's group, Mr. Cook, you have a question there.
Yeah, Richmond wanted to know if we'll ever see Allie's name in the credits on SpongeBob or something like that.
You will. I do have my name in the credits. I'm actually credited as Alexandria Kristen. And so you can see that now. If you're watching Camp Coral, you'll see it in future SpongeBob episodes. So yeah, that's kind of the cool thing. This is like my first credit. So I'm excited about this.
Any more questions, students on the call and/or advisory groups? Oh, Mr. Cook again.
Sixth graders have a lot of questions. Rise wanted to know what other sorts of jobs did you have before working in animation? were helpful to get you there?
So I worked at HSN, which is I don't know if you guys know this. It's the Home Shopping Network. It's retail TV. I worked as a studio coordinator there, and I worked there for 3 years, and that has nothing to do with the animation world or editing in general. But really good things that I learned there were time management and organization skills, and honestly, how to work with high profile guests, producers, and directors. Because a lot of people came through there. And before and after that, after I left, I worked for the Ellen Show, where I worked on her promos. So I didn't really have too much to do with Ellen herself, but that's where I learned a lot of on the job post production skills. I did a lot of editing there, and the skills that I learned there, because editing has a couple of different softwares. I was able to learn a software called Avid, and that helped me in my career now, because at Nickelodeon we use Avid and we use Adobe Premiere. And so all of my jobs have kind of just helped me gain a good work ethic, because they're not in animation. So the work ethic that I built at these past jobs that I've had has helped me at Nickelodeon.
We've got 2 questions in the chat. We'll try and get through them fairly quickly here. What's the hardest project you've ever worked on?
The hardest project that I've ever worked on has actually is gonna end up being Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a bear though.
And then have you ever met any of the voice actors that you've on shows you've worked on?
Virtually, yes. We actually had a little virtual premiere party for Camp Coral, and all of the voice actors were there. They're very nice people. Tom Kenny is a riot. Roger Bumpus, who plays Squidward, is fantastic. Love him. Everyone was super nice, super welcoming, and that's really important to me. It's nice to know that they're nice people and fun to work with. So virtually,
I think we're running up against the clock. I'm sure it sounds like Mr. Cook, 6th grade, could ask questions for the next hour. So, Mr. Sanderson, anything to say before we wrap up here? Mr. Rada?
Just Allie, to thank you again for being with us today. This was wonderful to hear about what you've been doing, and it's fascinating and really cool. And I think all of us are somewhat envious of what you get to do on a daily basis.